In a quiet suburb, Ava discovered a crumpled note in her daughter's backpack, scrawled in trembling handwriting. "Mom, I'm scared. Dad says I can't tell you." It was a plea that shattered her world. Her husband had been betraying their family for months, diverting funds for his own secret life. As the truth unraveled, a video of Ava confronting him went viral, racking up over 1 million views in just 24 hours. With her heart shattered and her trust in tatters, Ava chose to reclaim her narrative and protect her children at all costs. "My name is Ava. I refuse to let betrayal define my story." I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching my phone as the notifications poured in. My letter to Dad had ignited a wildfire of conversation that I had never anticipated. As my words spread across the internet, I felt a peculiar mix of pride and anxiety. It was strange to think that my simple expression of hurt had resonated with so many people. Yet the spotlight felt heavy on my shoulders. I glanced out of my window, where the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard. I knew that the world was paying attention, but what did it mean for my family? My brother Leo peeked into my room, his brow furrowed in concern. "You okay, Ava?" he asked, his voice gentle. Leo had always been the one to check in on me, a small relief in a family that felt more like strangers lately. I nodded, forcing a smile, though I could sense the worry etched on his face. I knew he wanted to be the peacemaker, to mend the rift that had grown not only between me and Dad, but also within our whole family. "It's just, everything is changing so fast," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think it would go this far." Leo stepped into my room and sat beside me. "Sometimes change can be good. Maybe this will help Dad understand," he said, attempting to lift my spirits. His optimism was comforting, but I wasn't entirely convinced. I recalled my father's face when I had handed him that letter, the way his expression shifted from surprise to concern. He had looked so overwhelmed by everything, and I wondered if he would really take the time to reflect on what I had said, or if he would bury himself even deeper in his work. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of my mother's voice calling us for dinner. Susan always had a way of coaxing us to the table, her tone warm and inviting, though I could sense her exhaustion beneath the surface. I took a deep breath and followed Leo downstairs, steeling myself for the inevitable questions. Would they discuss the viral letter during dinner, or would we pretend like everything was normal, the way we always did? As we gathered around the table, the aroma of pasta filled the air, but my appetite was the last thing on my mind. I noticed Mark sitting across from me, his uniform still slightly wrinkled from a long shift. He seemed deep in thought, stirring his food more than eating it. I wished I could read his mind, to understand what he was feeling. Did he regret how things had turned out? Did he realize how his absence affected me? "So, Ava, your letter," Mark began, his voice tentative as if he were treading on fragile ground. I could feel the tension tightening around us. It sparked quite a discussion. I looked up, meeting his gaze. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps guilt, or maybe even acknowledgement of his failings as a father. I wanted to respond, to tell him how much I needed him, but the words felt stuck in my throat. "Dad, I just wanted you to know how I felt," I finally managed to say. "It's hard feeling like I'm always waiting for you to come home." Leo reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it reassuringly. Susan interjected, her voice soft yet firm. "Mark, you need to talk to her. She's been carrying this weight for a long time." I could see the determination on her face. She had always been my advocate, even when it felt like no one else was. Mark opened his mouth as if to protest, but closed it again, recognizing that my mother was right. I'm sorry, Ava," he finally said, his tone genuine but heavy. "I've been so focused on my job that I didn't realize how much I was missing. I never wanted you to feel neglected." I could feel the sincerity in his voice, but doubt lingered in my heart. "It's not just about missing events or school plays, Dad. It's about feeling like I matter, I replied, the words spilling out as if they had been trapped for far too long. I don't want to be just a name on a calendar or a face in a photo. I want you to be there. Mark ran a hand through his hair, visibly shaken. I'll do better, I promise. This job is important, but you are my priority. My heart swelled at his admission, but I knew promises were easy to make and harder to keep. Leo squeezed my hand tighter, as if willing me to believe him. Dinner continued. But the atmosphere had shifted. There was a palpable tension mixed with hope, as if the words we had spoken hung in the air, waiting to be acted upon. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the brink of something significant, but uncertainty clouded my thoughts. Would we really change, or would this moment dissolve like so many before it? As the meal came to a close, my mother suggested we take a family picture. I hesitated. Capturing a moment felt daunting when the reality of our struggles loomed so large. But Leo nudged me, and I saw Mark and Susan exchanging looks that spoke of determination. I knew I had to try, if only for their sake. We gathered close, forcing smiles as the camera clicked. In that instant, I realized that while we had a long way to go, this was a start filled with hope, with the promise of communication, and perhaps with the possibility of healing. I held on to that thought tightly, wishing it would guide us through the difficult conversations yet to come. The days that followed were an emotional whirlwind for my family. I remember walking through the house, feeling a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Each member of our household seemed to be in their own world, processing the fallout from my letter in different ways. My mother, Susan, had become more attentive, her eyes sparkling with the kindness I had longed for. She would often pause from her chores to ask how my day was going, her voice laced with genuine curiosity. This small shift made my heart swell, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that our troubles were far from over. Leo took on the role of mediator with surprising ease. He seemed to sense the tension in the air and try to create opportunities for us to connect, whether it was through family board games or movie nights. I appreciated his efforts, but often found myself retreating to my room, overwhelmed by the emotions swirling around me. I wanted to believe that everything was changing for the better, but the memories of loneliness clung to me like a shadow. One evening, I overheard my parents arguing in the living room. Their voices were hushed but urgent, a mix of frustration and concern punctuating the air. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to catch snippets of their conversation. My father's voice was heavy with exhaustion. I never wanted it to come to this, Susan. I don't know how to balance it all anymore. My heart ached for him. I wished I could find the right words to reassure him, to make him see how much I missed him. When I finally ventured into the living room, both of them fell silent, their expressions shifting from agitation to surprise. I could feel the weight of the unsaid words in the room, a tangible reminder of the rift that had formed between us. I heard you, I admitted quietly, my voice trembling. I don't want you to feel like you have to choose between your job and us. My confession hung in the air, heavy with sincerity. Mark looked at me, his brow furrowed, as if he was seeing me for the first time. Ava, I never wanted you to feel neglected. I thought I was doing this for you, for our family. His admission struck a chord deep within me. It was the first time I sensed a shift in our dynamic, a hint that he was willing to understand my perspective. Over the next few weeks, there were moments of growth and understanding interspersed with setbacks. Mark made a concerted effort to come home earlier, trading late-night shifts for afternoon patrols. I noticed the warmth in our dinners when he was present, laughter mingling with the aroma of Susan's cooking, each plate filled with more than just food. It was as if we were learning to navigate the complexities of our lives together, one shared meal at a time. But my father's struggles were far from resolved. There were days when the weight of his job was etched on his face, the lines of stress deepening with each passing week. I could see it in the way he rubbed his temples after a long shift, or how his laughter sometimes felt forced. I wished I had the power to ease his burdens, to show him that family wasn't just a side note to his responsibilities. One rainy Saturday afternoon, Leo suggested we go for a hike. "Let's get outside," he said, his enthusiasm infectious. "We could all use some fresh air." The idea sounded appealing, but I hesitated. Part of me wanted to stay cocooned in my room, where I felt safe from the uncertainty of the outside world. Yet something in Leo's voice made me agree. I wanted to be part of the family, to put aside my fears and doubts, even if only for a few hours. As we trekked through the winding trails of the nearby park, the sound of raindrops mingling with laughter created a comforting atmosphere. I found myself walking beside Mark, the distance between us beginning to close. "You know, I've been thinking about your letter," he said, breaking the comfortable silence. "It opened my eyes in ways I didn't expect." I looked up at him, surprised. "Really? What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, the weight of his words evident. "I realized that I've been so focused on the job that I lost sight of what matters. I want to be there for you and Leo, not just physically, but emotionally too. I want you to feel like you can always talk to me." His sincerity made my heart race. It was the acknowledgement I had yearned for, the promise of something better. "I just want us to be close again," I confessed, my voice trembling. "I don't want to feel alone anymore." He nodded slowly, his expression serious. "You won't be. I'm going to try harder, Ava, I promise." That evening, as we sat together in the warmth of our living room, I felt a change in the air. The comfort of our family began to seep back into the fabric of our lives. We shared stories, laughter, and even a few tears, weaving a tapestry of connection that had long been frayed. It felt good to be united again, even if the process was just beginning. I realized then that healing isn't a straight path. It's filled with twists and turns, with unexpected moments of joy and sorrow. But through it all, I knew we were learning to embrace each other more fully, and that was something I was willing to fight for. With a hopeful heart, I was ready to explore this new chapter alongside my family. If you resonate with Ava's journey and want to continue following her story, please consider subscribing. Your support means the world as we delve deeper into the themes of family, connection, and love. As I sat in my room, the weight of my letter felt both light and heavy at the same time. My heart fluttered with hope, but I was still grappling with the reality of my family's situation. It was hard to believe that my simple words had sparked such a widespread discussion. I often wondered if anyone really understood how it felt to be overlooked. Each day, I would watch my dad leave for work, his uniform crisp and his expression serious. I used to wait by the door, hoping he'd come back and notice me, but now I often just felt like another piece of furniture in our home. The morning after my letter went viral, I woke to a flurry of notifications on my phone. Messages from friends, family, and even people I didn't know flooded in. They were all sharing their own stories, echoing the feelings I had poured into that letter. It was overwhelming, but also comforting to see that I wasn't alone. The support from strangers felt like a warm embrace, reminding me that my feelings were valid. I was just a girl, and yet somehow I had found a way to voice something that many others seemed to feel as well. At breakfast, the atmosphere was different. My mom, Susan, seemed more present than usual, her eyes bright as she read through the responses. Leo, my older brother, sat across from me, glancing between the two of us with an expression that was a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Have you talked to Dad yet?" he asked, a hint of unease in his voice. I shook my head, not wanting to dive into that conversation just yet. I felt a mix of emotions towards him. I wanted to be mad at Mark for being absent, but I also understood that he was fighting his own battles. With each passing moment, the weight of my father's absence felt heavier. I could almost hear the sound of his patrol car pulling into the driveway, but the reality was that he was still at work, likely buried under a mountain of calls and responsibilities. The thought of him reading my letter and seeing the reactions made my heart race. Would he finally realize how much he meant to me?
I longed for a moment where he would sit next to me, eyes softening as he listened to my feelings, truly listening rather than just offering empty reassurances. When Mark finally came home, the house filled with a palpable tension. I could see the weariness etched on his face, lines deepening around his eyes. My heart ached for him, knowing that he was grappling with more than just his work. It was a struggle between duty and family, and in that moment, I felt the chasm between us. He walked into the living room, and his gaze lingered on the phone in my hand. "I saw your letter, Ava," he said quietly, as if the words weighed heavily on his tongue. I looked up, searching for a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "You did?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It felt like a pivotal moment, my chance to express everything that had been bottled up inside me. "Did you really read it, or just the headlines?" Mark opened his mouth to respond, but before he could gather his thoughts, Susan interjected, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "You need to talk to her, Mark. She's been waiting for you to understand." The words hung in the air like a challenge, urging him to step up and truly see me. I could feel the tension shift, and for the first time, I sensed a crack in the armor he wore so fiercely. Leo leaned against the wall, observing the scene with a watchful eye. He always tried to be the mediator, smoothing out the rough edges of our family dynamic. "Maybe we should all sit down together," he suggested, offering a lifeline. It was as if he understood the depth of what was happening, recognizing the need for a family meeting of sorts. Mark nodded slowly, the weight of my letter pressing against him like an unwelcome truth. "You're right. I've been so caught up in my job that I didn't realize I was missing out on you guys," he confessed, rubbing the back of his neck as if the admission carried a physical burden. "I'm sorry, Ava." My heart raced. It wasn't just the apology that sparked a flicker of hope. It was the sincerity in his eyes. "I just want to know you, Dad," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rush of emotion flooding my chest. "I feel like I'm invisible sometimes." As I spoke, I could see the realization dawn on him. I watched as he processed the impact of his choices and the distance it had created between us. Mark took a step closer, his expression softening, and I felt the air around us shift. Maybe this was the moment we could bridge the gap that had grown over the years. "I want to change that," he said earnestly, his voice cracking slightly. "Let's make a plan. I'll make sure to prioritize our time together." The sincerity in his words filled me with cautious optimism, but I needed more than promises. I needed action. "Can we start tonight?" I suggested, my voice trembling with vulnerability. "Just us. No work, no distractions. I want to tell you about my world." Mark nodded, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a flicker of hope that we could mend what had been broken. With my family gathered around, I knew the journey ahead would take time, but this was the first step, a step toward healing and understanding. It was a small victory, yet it felt monumental in its significance. As we sat together, ready to embark on this conversation, I couldn't help but feel that perhaps the hidden message I had sent into the world was not just for my father. It was a message to all of us, a reminder that connection, however strained, could always be reignited. As I sat with my father, the weight of everything I had felt began to dissolve, replaced by a flicker of hope. Mark looked at me, his brow furrowed, as if he were trying to comprehend the whirlwind of emotions I had unleashed. I could see the guilt etched across his face, a stark contrast to the strong, unwavering figure he usually presented to the world. It was in that moment that I realized how much he truly cared, despite the invisible barrier that his job had erected between us. "Can you tell me more about how you feel, Ava?" he asked. His voice, a mixture of tenderness and uncertainty. I nodded, drawing in a deep breath to steady myself. My heart raced, filled with the urgency to explain the suffocating loneliness that accompanied my father's long hours and the silence that often filled our home. I wanted to convey that it wasn't just his absence that hurt, but the moments missed, like the school plays, the late-night talks,
and even the small victories I cherished. "Dad, I know you have a job that is really important, and I want you to be safe, but sometimes it feels like I'm losing you," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes as I watched his expression shift from concern to understanding. I sensed a crack in the armor he wore so tightly, and I knew this conversation could be the turning point we both needed. Mark leaned in closer, his elbows resting on his knees. "I never meant for you to feel that way. I thought working hard would make things better for all of us." His admission hung in the air like a fragile promise, and I felt a surge of empathy for him. He was only trying to provide, but in doing so, he had missed the heart of what being a father truly meant. I glanced around the room, taking in the familiar surroundings, the family photos on the walls, the cozy couch where we used to pile together for movie nights, and the kitchen that often echoed with laughter. It struck me how these remnants of happier times felt distant and faded in comparison to the emotional distance that had grown between us. "I just want to feel like I matter too," I said, my voice trembling. "Sometimes I feel invisible." The silence that followed was heavy, a testament to the depth of my words. Mark closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if gathering the strength to respond. When he opened them again, I saw a mix of determination and sorrow. "I need to do better, for you and for Susan and Leo. I can't let my job take me away from my family. You all are my priority." As he spoke, I felt a flicker of warmth in my chest. Hope began to blossom, and I grasped that perhaps this was the beginning of something new for us. In that moment, the conversation transformed into a bridge, connecting the gap that had formed over time. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild what had been strained, and as I observed my father, I realized he was willing to try. "Can we make a plan?" I suggested, my enthusiasm bubbling to the surface. "Like a family night every week, just us, no distractions." The idea felt exhilarating, and I could see a spark of excitement light up his eyes. "We could cook together or play games, anything that helps us connect again." Mark nodded slowly, a smile breaking through the weight of the moment. "That sounds perfect. I'd love to spend more time with you guys. I'll make it happen, I promise." His sincerity washed over me like a comforting blanket, and I felt a warmth spread through my veins. For the first time in a long while, it seemed like our family would be whole again. Just then, Leo walked into the room, his presence bringing a sense of calm. He had always been the peacemaker, someone who could lighten the mood even during the heaviest of times. "What's going on in here?" he asked, his eyebrows raised in curiosity. I exchanged a quick glance with my dad, a knowing smile passing between us. "Just talking about family," I replied, my heart still racing from the depth of our conversation. I could sense Leo's instinct to protect and mend our family ties, and I knew he would be thrilled to hear what we had discussed. "Awesome! Can I join in?" he asked, plopping down on the floor beside us. Mark and I both nodded, and I shared our plan for family nights. Leo's eyes lit up as he thought of all the possibilities we could explore together. "How about we start this weekend? We can make homemade pizzas and I'll bring the ingredients." Excitement filled the room, and I couldn't help but smile at the idea of being surrounded by my family, all of us working together and laughing. I felt a renewed sense of connection, a thread woven back into our lives that had once seemed frayed and disconnected. Leo's enthusiasm was infectious, and soon we were brainstorming toppings and games, our voices rising in a jubilant chorus. As we discussed our plans, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the brink of change. My heart swelled with hope, the kind that only comes when you realize that you're no longer alone in your struggles. My father, my brother, and I had taken a step together, and I could feel the strength of our bond growing stronger with each passing moment. Later that evening, as we settled down for dinner, I noticed my mother, Susan, observing us with a soft smile. Her eyes held a mixture of love and gratitude, and I knew she had been yearning for this sense of unity just as much as I had. It felt like the pieces of our family were starting to fit together again, and I could hardly wait to see what the future held for us. In my heart, I realized that we were writing a new chapter, one filled with resilience, laughter, and, above all, love. As the days passed, our family's dynamic began to shift in subtle yet profound ways. It was as if Ava's heartfelt letter had opened a floodgate of emotions that had been held back for far too long. Mark started coming home earlier from work, often bringing takeout or the occasional surprise dessert for all of us to share. The sound of laughter began to echo through the halls, filling the spaces that had once felt empty and strained. I could see the spark of joy rekindled in my mother's eyes. She radiated warmth whenever we were all gathered around the dining table. It was as if the simple act of eating together had woven a thread of connection that had been frayed over time. One evening, as we settled into our usual spots at the table, Mark took a deep breath, his gaze shifting from me to Ava. He cleared his throat, a sign that he was about to say something important. I felt a flutter of nervousness in my stomach, wondering what words would come next. "I need to apologize," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with vulnerability. "I've been so caught up in my job and the demands of my role that I lost sight of what truly matters, my family. I never meant for you to feel neglected, Ava. Your letter opened my eyes to what I've been missing." Ava's expression shifted from surprise to understanding, her small hands clasping each other tightly on the table. I admired her strength. She had dared to speak her truth, and now it was being recognized in a way that I had hoped for but never fully believed would happen. Mark continued, "I want to be a better father. I want to know what's going on in your lives, to be present for all of you. No more missed dinners, no more excuses." Susan's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and I could see the weight that had been resting on her shoulders begin to lift. She reached across the table and placed her hand on Mark's, a silent affirmation of her support. "We can work through this together," she said softly, her voice a soothing balm. "We've been running on autopilot for too long. Let's make an effort to reconnect and share our lives more fully." Ava's smile widened, and I felt a warmth spreading through me, igniting a flicker of hope that had been buried beneath layers of worry and tension. That night marked a turning point for us. Mark began asking us about our days, and even the simplest conversations sparked a renewed sense of intimacy. I could see him making genuine efforts to balance his responsibilities at work with his commitment to our family. As the weekend approached, we planned a family outing to the park, a tradition that had dwindled over the years but had now resurfaced with vigor. The sun shone brightly, and the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and chatter. Ava darted ahead, her infectious joy palpable as she ran towards the playground. I watched her, a sense of pride swelling in my chest, knowing she had been the catalyst for this change. Mark and Susan shared knowing glances, both aware that we were reclaiming a part of our family history that had been lost. As we settled onto a picnic blanket, Mark pulled out a small portable grill, igniting it with a flick of the lighter. The scent of grilled sandwiches and veggies wafted through the air, and soon we were all engaged in conversation, sharing stories and playful banter. Ava's laughter rang out like music, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of completeness. The heaviness of the past seemed to dissipate with every shared joke and smile exchanged across the blanket. In that moment, I realized how important it was to embrace these fleeting moments together. I made a promise to myself to ensure that our family would remain connected, no matter how busy life became. We all faced challenges, but this newfound communication opened doors I never knew existed. Ava had shown us that vulnerability could lead to healing, and it was a lesson I would carry with me always. Later, while we lounged on the blanket, I noticed Ava writing in her little notebook again. Curiosity piqued, I leaned in closer to catch a glimpse. She was writing down our experiences from the day, capturing our laughter, our shared meals, and the little moments of joy that filled the air. "I want to remember all of this," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "These moments are special."
Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes as I thought about how far we had come. It was incredible to witness the transformation within our family. We were not just surviving, but truly living and growing together. As Ava continued to write, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. I wanted to ensure that we made a habit of these family outings, that we would never again let the chaos of life overshadow our connection. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue across the sky, I spoke up, urging everyone to share their own reflections about what had changed since Ava's letter. Mark went first, expressing his newfound appreciation for our family time. Susan followed, sharing her gratitude for the support she felt from both Mark and us. When it came to Ava, her eyes sparkled with hope as she shared how powerful it felt to be heard and valued. In that moment, I felt a surge of warmth in my heart. I realized that these connections were what truly mattered, that we were learning to navigate life together. I wanted to encourage others who might feel similarly neglected or unheard to reach out, to share their stories and feelings, just as Ava had done. Our experiences could inspire others to find their own path toward reconnection. As we packed up the picnic, I could sense that our family was on the verge of something beautiful, a new chapter filled with promise. I felt hopeful, knowing that as long as we kept communicating and supporting one another, we could weather any storm. I turned to Ava, who was now smiling up at me with a mix of pride and love. "Let's keep writing our story," I said, and she nodded enthusiastically, her spirit shining brightly. In that moment, I knew that our journey was far from over. It had merely begun, and I was eager to see how our family would continue to evolve and grow, one word, one moment at a time. If you have a story of your own, I invite you to share it. Together, we can find strength in our connections and inspire one another through our journeys. As days turned into weeks, the atmosphere in our home began to shift. My father, Mark, made an effort to come home earlier from work, trading the sirens and the chaos of the city for the gentle sounds of our kitchen. I noticed how he would linger by the door, taking a moment to breathe before stepping into our living room. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental to me, like a seed of hope planted in the soil of our strained family dynamic. Susan, my mother, appeared more at ease, her shoulders less burdened by the weight of the day-to-day. She would smile more often, and I could see a flicker of the joy that had been somewhat dormant in her for so long. Leo remained my steadfast anchor, always quick to diffuse the tension that sometimes hung in the air. He would tease me about my school projects, reminding me that art was a great way to express my feelings, and I would roll my eyes playfully, but deep down, I appreciated his efforts to keep the mood light. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table working on a drawing for school, I caught sight of my father sitting across from me, his brow furrowed in concentration as he scrolled through his phone. "What are you looking at, Dad?" I asked, trying to draw him into a conversation. He looked up, surprise evident on his face, and a soft smile crept across his lips. "Just some of the letters people sent in response to yours," he said. My heart skipped a beat. I had never thought about how my words had resonated beyond our family. As he shared snippets of stories from other children and parents, I felt a swell of pride. My small voice had sparked something much larger. With each story he shared, I could see the reflection of my own feelings in the experiences of others. A little girl spoke of her father working night shifts and missing out on soccer games. A boy wrote about wanting to feel acknowledged amidst his parents' busy lives. These letters were not just echoes of my own sentiments. They were testaments to a universal struggle, one that transcended our individual circumstances. My father looked at me, his eyes glistening with emotion. "You did something incredible, Ava. You opened a dialogue that many didn't know they needed." The sincerity in his voice warmed my heart, and I could feel the distance between us shrinking, replaced by understanding and empathy. Inspired by the stories we discussed, I decided to take a leap of faith. I asked my parents if we could host a family meeting, a time for us to express our thoughts and feelings openly. My mother raised her eyebrows in surprise, but quickly agreed, while my father nodded, a look of determination on his face. I could sense Leo's excitement. He loved organizing things and immediately began to plan what snacks we should have. We set a date for that Sunday, and the anticipation built within me like a bubbling pot ready to overflow. As the day approached, I prepared by writing down some notes on what I wanted to share. I wanted to talk about how I felt invisible at times and how my father's absence had made me feel isolated. I also wanted to express my appreciation for the changes I was beginning to see, hoping to create a safe space where we could all share openly. That Sunday afternoon, as we gathered around the table with chips, cookies, and drinks, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. My father began by thanking everyone for coming together, his sincerity immediately putting me at ease. As we took turns sharing, I listened intently as my father expressed his regret about missing important moments in my life. He spoke of the guilt he carried, a weight that had been heavy on his shoulders since my letter had gone public. "I've been so caught up in my job," he admitted, his voice cracking slightly, "that I forgot what really matters, being here for my family." My heart swelled with compassion as I realized that my father's struggles mirrored my own feelings of neglect and that we were both navigating this difficult terrain together. Susan shared how she felt overwhelmed with managing everything at home while trying to support Mark and raise us. It was a revelation to hear her voice these feelings, as I had often thought I was the only one feeling adrift in the emotional tides of our family. When it was finally my turn, I took a deep breath. "I just want you both to know that I love you," I began, my voice steady despite the tremor of vulnerability. "But sometimes it feels like I'm not important to you, like I'm just a background character in my own life." The silence that followed felt profound, as if the weight of my words hung in the air, drawing us closer. I could see my mother's eyes shimmering with unshed tears, and my father clenched his fists, the emotion etched on his face. "I want to feel like I matter, and I want us to be a family again," I finished, my heart pounding with every syllable. Leo reached over and squeezed my hand, a gesture of solidarity that made me feel seen and supported. He chimed in, sharing how he often felt caught in the middle and how he wanted us all to be connected. As we continued to share our truths, something remarkable happened. Walls that had been built over time began to crumble. Each confession was met with understanding, and every tear shed was a step toward healing. I realized that while our family had been through turbulent waters, we had the capacity to navigate toward calmer seas if we allowed ourselves to be vulnerable with one another. By the end of our meeting, we had laughed, cried, and shared our hopes for the future. We promised to check in with each other regularly, to carve out time for family activities, and most importantly, to keep the lines of communication open. As I looked around the table, I felt a deep sense of connection that I had longed for. My father put his arm around my shoulder, pulling me close, and I could feel his warmth. In that moment, I understood that this journey was just beginning. We were all learning how to be present for one another in a world that often pulled us apart. The bond we forged that day became our guiding light, reminding us of the importance of love, patience, and unwavering support amidst life's chaos.